It's Cat. I know, damn it, I'm back. Maybe I shouldn't blaspheme at the beginning of a video about religion. Right? Maybe it's bad voodoo. So, last two we talked about, where I was talking about the history, a little bit of history of Westeros and the faith, and then really getting into what happened in England at the time that religion began to change in England. So, we had King Henry VIII wanting to get divorced, and not getting his way with the Pope, and then the Pope said, "Jump in the lake," and King Henry VIII said, "You first," and made himself the head of the church. And the Gutenberg press came, and the Bible began to be printed, largest single #1 book ever printed in multiple languages. There was one small problem: it wasn't uniform. You couldn't read the same thing in all the same Bibles. Then he dies. His son, very young son, comes to power, and everybody's just trying to keep the peace, so nobody's making any great moves about changing the church, as drastically as Henry VIII had began to move it, because they just want to keep the prospect of rebellion down. But Edward VI then dies very young. His sister Mary, Queen Mary, she comes to power, and she's a devout Catholic, and she's really still pissed off about the whole, divorcing her mom thing. So she's like, we're a Catholic country, and we are going to be Catholic. And then she begins to purify the faith by burning people at the stake, making her Bloody Queen Mary. So burning people at the stake. I think you've seen that in the Game of Thrones, right? And then Mary dies. Some say possibly from uterine cancer or something of that nature. We don't actually know. But her sister, Queen Elizabeth, comes to the throne, and Queen Elizabeth is at least outwardly Protestant. Possibly, potential Catholic, but she had Protestant tutors when she was growing up. And of course, she just saw the really horrific way that all this bad stuff was going on with her father, her brother, and her sister in power. So she's kind of got a clue, sort of like Sansa's getting a clue right now, right? Shout out to the Game of Thrones Academy dudes. She was kind of getting a clue all along about faith in the people and what it means to govern them and effectively govern them and change it. So Mary actually did her a gigantic favor by doing this big bloody deed. Lots of people were freaking horrified. And so when Elizabeth came to power, the Protestants began to gain power again. The Anglican Church was being reformed, and this became the faith, and she was the head of the Anglican Church. She made herself the head of the Anglican Church. So bye-bye Catholicism, the last remnants of that, or at least the last official at the government levels of that. Down at the lower street level, there was still a crap ton of people who were Catholic, but Protestantism was gaining a foothold, and there was persecution, and there was little riots that were occurring, and Elizabeth just said she was going to be above it. So she didn't get down into the nitty-gritty about what doctrine was right or wrong, etc., etc. She was just the head of the church, and she would say, how the worship would happen, and what the actual, it's not called a mass anymore, but whatever the Anglican mass would look like, what they would say, and that they would give it in freaking English. No more Latin. They were going to speak it in the common tongue. Okay? So I think, backing up a second, what are we seeing in Westeros and the Game of Thrones? So we see the god R'hllor, the god of light, and we see his priests and priestesses are having people burned at the stake, which is kind of horrifying to the people of Westeros. Some people are going along because they're starting to get into this faith. They're starting to believe, and she has Stannis burn his seven gods, So we're starting to see the little bit of fall of Catholicism right there. Not only that the seven, but also that the monotheistic God of light religion, if it sticks around and takes some sort of hold in Westeros, it too is going to be changed. Okay? Because if you know the history of actual Christianity, so you're seeing all this all at once in Game of Thrones, actual history of Christianity is as the um, apostles or the preachers went out, like St. Columbus and St. Patrick and St. Bridget and a number of other ones went out and taught to the heathens or the pagans. They didn't exactly just say, this is how you're going to do it and this is how the Christians do it, and this is what you're going to do it. They actually adopted some aspects of the paganistic religion to their own, and so it made it more acceptable to the people. So what I imagine is going to happen in Westeros is that there is going to be some sort of purge, because I skipped this part a little bit. There's going to be a purge after Henry VIII declared himself the head of the church. A lot of the archbishops and those who were loyal to the Pope, they resisted, and this is what Henry VIII did. He basically sent out dudes to their abbeys and their monasteries, and he confiscated all their goods. He threw them into prison, and then if he didn't give the monasteries and the land to some of his noblemen as gifts, he ripped them down. He tore them down. So what's going to happen in Westeros? I expect, first of all, that that either the religion of the seven, the faith of the seven, or Rahola R, the faith of the God of light, are going to merge in some way. So you're going to see some merging, but one will become a little bit more prominent, and the other one will just be the lower aspects, because even like in the Anglican Church, there are saints, right? But they aren't worshipped or prayed to on the same level that Catholicism is. So it may be that the God of light takes the primary role, and the role of seven takes the concept of different saints or whomever that they would look upon as people who acted in a certain way. Like in Anglican theology, there's St. George and there's St. Michael. And, St. Michael's the protector of soldiers and etc. And St. George slayed the dragon. He slayed Satan. So they still recognize them as saints or holy aspects. They just don't have the same level as gods or God. They're not anywhere near up in that pantheon. At the same time, because Rahul R is sort of violent and they like to frickin' burn people at the stake, and that's something that people are like, no, that's kind of bad voodoo, and people aren't going to dig that. That will go away. Those aspects will go away. They might even have a savior or messiah concept. So Azor Ahai might continue as a savior, even if he doesn't come, because there's some theories that says there's no really Azor Ahai or one single messiah that's going to come and save Westeros, because everybody's always prophesizing about the end of the world, and it never comes, about the coming of the Messiah, and it never comes. But at the same time, when bad stuff happens, people act, and they actually together act to correct it or save people without a Messiah actually having to come. So that's a shout out to the Game of Thrones dudes. So here's again what I see happening. So these religions are going to merge, and I forgot about the drowned god, because that which is dead will rise again, like Jesus from the tomb. And so I believe that this faith will take on the aspects of the drowned God in the terms of the dead rising again, because of course they also saw it. They're going to see it, right? The others, but they're going to have it as like the Ironborn do it, that you're baptized in the water. So I see baptism coming. And that you're reborn, right? So this is how you're going to have this faith that kind of looks like the Anglican Christian faith start happening in Westeros. That's what I expect to see. Somebody, of course, is going to do the part of Henry VIII, because The sparrow took too much damn power and tried to insert himself in the power structure instead of just seeing to the faith. And nobody's going to like that, not even the people, because you think about it, if they do end up getting rid of all the absolute kings, because that's one of the other things that's coming, the absolute kings are going, and they're going to have a little bit more freedom and say so. Do you want an absolute religious theocracy telling you what to do? You just got out of the monarchy, the absolute monarchy. Do you want an absolute theocracy? And with dudes who go around and could club you to death, just like the monarchs did with their men, and there was nothing you could do about it. Well, hell no. The answer is hell no. So I think what will happen is that somebody is going to tear down the septon, the bell. There, some of those little temples. There's going to be some significant changes. Everything that happens there, and then of course, in the similar, the whoever is going to end up being the head of Westeros is going to be the head of the church, and they will appoint their own people, and they will not be crazy people, and they will not be, people who threaten the order per se, but they will be people whose job it is to succor the faithful, and support their faith, not in telling people how necessarily to live their lives. And there's going to be this concept of forgiveness and stuff. So this is what I see is coming in Westeros. One other aspect here. So I talked about the fire, that the R'hllor was Bloody Mary, burning, purifying the faith, or the faithful, with the fire already at the stakes. But there's this idea maybe that, like the destruction of all the Catholic churches and abbeys who resisted Henry VIII, that somebody else will do something similar. They have to do something similar. I don't know who it is. I have a thought. In order to destroy it, or at least knock it down enough that they put it back in its place. And I believe that it has to be a trial by right and by fire. And so part of me wonders if, I talked about Daenerys and her potential future and her messianic trajectory, and how, sometimes good Messiah, the power goes to their damn head and then they turn into bad Messiah. So there's this part of me that thinks, she's over there with her dragon and she's fighting off the others, and then there's this thing about the faith, and maybe she burns the crap out of some of the faith. Right? Maybe the faith militant come after her because she's on a dragon and she's magic and she's like some sort of demonic representation. And so she burns the crap out of the faith, and a bunch of them die, or things are destroyed, and it physically changes them. But that might be the thing that ends up getting her killed. I don't know. It's a theory. It's a thought. All right. But so faith is going to change. You're going to see all these faiths be amalgamized into one kind of faith, and somebody's going to be the head, and they're not going to be crazy. So thank you very much. Tell me what you think about that, and I'll talk to you guys later.